Have you ever wondered why you try so hard, yet your life doesn't truly move forward? You read books, you work hard, you set goals, but it feels like some invisible force keeps you stuck in the exact same place. Like a boat trying to cut through the waves toward the open sea, yet still tied to the dock by a thin rope. You row harder, you push more, but the boat never really gets far. The truth that few people dare to face is this: sometimes that rope isn't circumstances, not money, not ability. It's the relationships around you. Do you know that we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with? That means their thinking, their standards, their ambitions are gradually becoming yours. And what's frightening is that this process happens very quietly. I still remember the early years when I began changing my life. I was full of determination, but every time I shared a bigger dream, I received doubtful looks, comments like, "Be realistic." At first, I thought it was just advice. Later, I realized it was their limits trying to become my limits. In today's video, I will share with you 5 clear signs that your current friends may be pulling you down even if they don't mean to. This is not a call to cut off every relationship. This is an invitation for you to conduct an honest audit of your environment. Because your future is not only determined by what you do, but also by the people you allow to influence you. Let's start with a simple question. The people you spend the most time with, are they helping you move forward or are they holding you back? The first sign, they mock your ambition. There is something I learned very early in my personal growth journey. Not every laugh brings joy. Some laughter sounds light, familiar yet powerful enough to make a dream hesitate. Imagine a seed that has just begun to sprout. It's not a big tree yet. It has no flowers or fruit. It has just barely emerged from the soil, very fragile. If someone walks by and steps on it at that moment, you already know what will happen. No malice needed. Just carelessness is enough to end a future. Your ambition is the same. One of the clearest signs that a friend is pulling you down is when they mock your big goals under the label of being realistic. They might joke, "Oh, why dream so big? Who do you think you are? Just settle down and be safe." It sounds harmless, but ask yourself, why is it that every time you share a desire to go further, they respond by shrinking it? I've been there. When I started talking about wanting to completely change my life, to read more, learn more, earn more, someone looked at me and said, "Don't overcomplicate things. Life is fine as it is." At the time, I didn't see the issue. I thought they were protecting me from failure. But later I understood something deeply important. Sometimes people aren't trying to protect you from failure, they're protecting themselves from feeling left behind. Mockery rarely comes from malice. It comes from their own limits. If they've never dared to dream big, your big dream makes them uncomfortable. And instead of expanding their own vision, they will try to shrink yours. This is where you need to be truly aware. The successful people I've observed never ridicule someone else's ambition. They may not fully understand it. They may not agree, but they respect the effort to grow. Because they know every great achievement begins as an idea that was once called unrealistic. If you're a student who wants to start a business and your friends say, "Finish school first, then think about that." If you're an employee who wants to learn new skills and someone says, "Why bother?" If you want to save money to invest in your future and you're teased for being too serious, pause and observe. Not everyone who disagrees with you is pulling you down. But if their presence makes you shrink your dreams just to be accepted, that's a warning sign. I've made mistakes here too. I stayed silent about my goals to avoid arguments. I slowed down my growth to keep the peace. And the price I paid was years of stagnation, not because I lacked ability, but because I lacked an encouraging environment. Success is not accidental. It is a series of right decisions, repeated every day. And one of the most important decisions is who you allow to influence your standards. Are you shrinking your dreams so you don't make someone uncomfortable? Are you talking less about your ambition just to preserve a friendship? And more importantly, if you stay in that environment for 5 more years, who do you think you will become? Remember this. The people who truly care about you will not be afraid when you grow. They may not walk with you every step of the way, but they will not try to pull you back to the starting line. And that's just the beginning, because there is an even more subtle sign when you're not mocked, but you start feeling guilty simply for wanting to go further. Sign number 2, you feel guilty for wanting to go further than them. There's a very strange feeling many people never talk about. It's the feeling of having to apologize for growing. You start reading more. You start waking up earlier. You start saying no to meaningless gatherings. And then someone says, "You've changed lately." It sounds gentle. But underneath that sentence is a message. You're not like us anymore. This is the second sign that a friend may be pulling you down when your growth makes them uncomfortable, and you begin to feel guilty for wanting to go further. I've experienced this. When I decided to change my habits, my environment, my standards, some old friends began to distance themselves. Not because I did anything wrong, but because I no longer participated in the same old conversations, old habits, old thinking. At first I asked myself, am I being arrogant? Am I abandoning them? I struggled with that feeling a lot. But then I realized an important truth in the success principles. Growth always comes with change, and change always disrupts those who are not ready to change with you. If every time you talk about your goals, someone makes you feel too ambitious, if every time you skip a hangout to focus on work, someone makes you feel hard to be around, if you start saving money instead of spending it, and they tease you for being too calculating, the problem is not your actions. The problem is the difference in standards. You cannot fly high if you're dragging people who are afraid of heights. And you cannot build a big future if every step forward requires permission from someone else's comfort. I learned that true friendship does not require you to stay small. It does not demand that you remain in one place just so everyone feels safe. Success is not only about achieving more, it's about becoming more. And when you become more, not everyone will feel comfortable with it. There's a question I once asked myself, and perhaps you should ask yourself too. If I refuse to change because I'm afraid of losing a few relationships, what will my life look like in 5 years? Will you choose the discomfort of discipline today or the discomfort of regret tomorrow? I'm not saying you must cut off every relationship, but you need to clearly recognize this. If a relationship makes you feel guilty simply for moving forward, it is not an environment that helps you grow. Someone who truly supports you will say, I'm proud of you. They may not move at the same pace, but they will not force you to slow down. And I realize something deeply important. If my success makes someone insecure, that is not my fault. My responsibility is not to keep everyone comfortable. My responsibility is to live up to the potential I've been given. Ask yourself honestly, are you holding yourself back just to keep the peace? Are you staying in your comfort zone because you're afraid of what others might think? Because if you continue like this, you're not just losing opportunities, you're losing the best version of yourself. And that's still not the most dangerous part. Because there are people who don't mock you, don't make you feel guilty. They simply plant something far more dangerous, doubt. Sign number 3, they plant doubt instead of nurturing belief. Weeds don't grow loudly. They don't need attention. They just need time and a little neglect. Doubt is the same way. This is the third sign, and perhaps the most subtle. The people who pull you down don't always mock you. They don't always make you feel guilty. Sometimes, they simply say very gentle things. Are you sure you can do it? Are you sure you're capable enough? That sounds good, but it's very risky. It sounds reasonable. It sounds caring. It sounds cautious. But if those statements appear repeatedly every time you want to move forward, they will do something very dangerous. They turn your confidence into hesitation. I once let that happen to me. There was a time when I wanted to start a new path. I felt ready. I had prepared. But someone told me, I don't think that's for you. Just one sentence, no yelling, no ridicule, just a comment. But do you know what happened? I started asking myself, maybe they're right. Then I postponed. Then I waited. Then I overanalyzed. And a few months passed with no progress at all. A single doubt may not kill a dream immediately, but it slows your momentum. And in life, momentum matters more than speed. According to the success principles I often mention, your environment shapes your standards. If you're around people who believe in growth, you will act more boldly. But if you're around people who always see risk before opportunity, you will begin to see the world through a lens of fear. The dangerous part is that doubt can be disguised as advice. Not all advice is bad, but you must distinguish. Are they helping you think more carefully or helping you shrink? Observe the pattern. When you talk about a new opportunity, how do they respond? Do they ask, how can you make that happen? Or do they ask, what if you fail? A good friend helps you prepare for risk. A negative friend makes you believe risk is a reason not to start. I learned that every major change begins with a very small awakening. And that awakening is realizing, I must protect my belief the way I protect a flame in the wind. Belief is not naturally durable. It needs to be nurtured. It needs to be reinforced by action, by environment, by positive conversations. If every time you leave a conversation you feel smaller, if after sharing a goal you feel more uncertain instead of clearer, if you constantly find yourself thinking, maybe I'm not good enough, pause. Who is speaking into your ear more, the builder or the destroyer? I once ignored this principle and paid for it with years of stagnation. I thought I needed to listen to every opinion to become wiser, but I forgot one thing: not every voice deserves a place in your mind. You cannot build a solid future if your foundation is constantly drilled through by doubt, and that's only half the picture. Because after you recognize these first three signs, mockery, guilt, doubt, you'll begin to see a larger pattern. Negative environments often come with a very familiar mindset, a blaming mindset. But before we move forward, if you're recognizing yourself in what I've just shared, hit subscribe to continue this journey with me. Because choosing the right environment doesn't just change your emotions, it changes your future. Now let's go a little further to a sign I wish I had recognized 10 years earlier. Sign number 4, they live in blame and complaint. You can learn a lot about your future simply by listening to the conversations around you every day. If those conversations revolve around solutions, responsibility, and opportunity, you're in a growth environment. But if they revolve around blame, unfairness, and complaints, you're in an environment of stagnation. This is the 4th sign that a friend is pulling you down. They live in a victim mindset. I once spent time with people for whom every problem had an external culprit. If the economy was difficult, it was the market's fault. If income was low, it was the company's fault. If life wasn't going well, it was the fault of family, the past, circumstances. At first glance, it sounds reasonable. Life truly isn't fair. Circumstances can be harsh. But if you pay close attention, you'll see a pattern. They rarely talk about what they can do. They only talk about what others should do. And the most dangerous part is this: that mindset is contagious. You don't need to agree with them. You just need to hear it long enough and you'll begin to believe part of it. I remember a period when I got pulled into conversations like that. Every meetup revolved around complaining about work, coworkers, the times. At first, I just listened. Then I added a few agreeing comments. And one day, I realized I was thinking the same way. And I asked myself, if I keep thinking like this for 5 more years, who will I become? One of the most important success principles I learned is this: you can't change the direction of the wind, but you can adjust your sails. When you blame, you hand your power over to circumstances. When you take responsibility, you keep that power. The person pulling you down isn't necessarily a bad person, but if they constantly reinforce a worldview where you are a victim, you will gradually lose your ability to act proactively. Ask yourself, when you share a difficulty, do they ask, what can you do to improve it? Or do they say, yeah, life is unfair? When you talk about a goal, do they ask, what's your plan? Or do they say, it's hard, don't expect too much? Your environment will determine your thinking standards. And your thinking standards will determine your actions. Repeated daily, your actions will determine your destiny. I learned that life charges a price to those who are lazy in thinking, and complaining is the most common form of lazy thinking. Complaining doesn't solve problems. It only makes you feel like you don't need to act. If you spend most of your time around people who see limits before opportunity, you will gradually see the world through the same lens. And then you'll wonder why you're not moving forward when in reality, you've been absorbing their mindset every day. Are you close to people who take responsibility or people who specialize in blame? If you don't change your thinking environment today, what do you think your life will look like in 5 years? And that's only part of the picture. Because even if someone doesn't mock you, doesn't make you feel guilty, doesn't plant doubt, doesn't blame, there is still one final sign, the clearest one and the hardest to deny. Energy doesn't lie. Let's move to sign number 5. Sign number 5. You always feel drained after being around them. There is one very honest measure you can't pretend in front of. It's your energy. You can convince yourself they're just joking. You can say, everyone gets negative sometimes. You can justify it. I'm just being too sensitive. But your body and your emotions don't lie. After every hangout, after every conversation, ask yourself one simple question: do I feel stronger or weaker? This is the 5th sign and also the clearest sign that a friend is pulling you down. You always have to recover emotionally after being around them. I used to have meetups where, when I left, I felt heavy. No one insulted me. There was no big argument. But throughout the conversation, everything revolved around bad news, complaining, criticizing others, worrying about the future. And when I got home, I didn't want to work, I didn't want to read, I just wanted to sit still and recover. At first, I thought I was just tired, but then I started noticing a pattern. Every time I was around certain people, I lost motivation, while being around other people gave me more ideas, more enthusiasm. Energy is a reflection of your environment. Some people are a charger. Some people are an outlet that drains you. You don't have to hate them to see that. You just have to be honest with how you feel. According to the success principles, you must protect your inner environment the way you protect your most valuable asset, because motivation, discipline, and belief all require energy to exist. If you're constantly in an energy-draining environment, you won't have enough strength to carry out the daily habits that lead to success. Pay close attention. After seeing them, do you feel like taking action? Or do you only want to procrastinate? Do you feel clearer about your goals? Or do you feel vague and discouraged? I learned this. If you have to recover emotionally after seeing someone, that is not an environment that helps you grow. This doesn't mean every relationship has to be inspiring 24 hours a day. Everyone has weak moments. Everyone needs to share struggles. But if negativity becomes the default state, you are paying with your life energy. And remember, success doesn't only require skill, it requires momentum. And momentum is built from positive energy repeated every day. If every week you keep getting drained by the same environment, you will lose more than you think. You will lose focus. You will lose clarity. And little by little, you will even lose the belief that you can go further. You can't climb a mountain if every day someone is gently pulling you backward. So ask yourself seriously, are the people you spend the most time with giving you strength or quietly taking it away? Because you are the average of your 5 closest friends, not only in thinking, not only in standards, but also in energy. And when you look back at all 5 signs mocking your ambition, making you feel guilty, planting doubt, nurturing a blaming mindset, and draining your energy, you begin to see a clearer picture. This is not a cold call to cut off every relationship. This is an invitation to do a relationship audit. There are people you need to disconnect from completely because they constantly sabotage your goals. There are people you need to limit time with because even if you care about them, you cannot let their mindset become your future. Don't join easygoing crowds. You won't be able to grow there. Your future is a valuable asset, and your environment is the soil where that asset grows. If the soil is toxic, even the strongest seed will struggle to grow. And now, let's close with the most important truth in today's entire lesson. You and I both have a gift today. And today gives you the chance to look back at your environment honestly. We just walked through 5 clear signs that your current friends may be pulling you down. They mock your ambition. They make you feel guilty for wanting to go further. They plant doubt instead of nurturing belief. They live in blame and complaint. And you always feel drained after being around them. This is not an accusation. This is an awakening. I don't believe in blaming other people for my stagnation, but I do believe in taking responsibility for the environment I choose to be in. Remember, you can't change everyone around you, but you can change how much influence they have over you. So do a relationship audit today. Write down the names of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Ask 3 simple questions. How are they impacting me? Who am I becoming when I'm around them? Does that influence align with my life goals? If the answers make you uncomfortable, that's not a signal to panic. It's a signal to act. There are relationships you need to disconnect from completely. Not because you hate them, but because you love your future more. There are relationships you simply need to limit. Keep respect, but protect your standards. And there are relationships you should seek more of people who challenge you, inspire you, and make you want to become a better version of yourself every day. Success is not only the result of personal effort, it is the product of the environment you allow around you. If you don't change today, what do you think your life will look like in 5 years? Will you choose the discomfort of changing your environment or the discomfort of living below your potential? I once ignored this lesson and paid with time. But when I started choosing my environment consciously, everything changed faster than I thought. Not because I suddenly became more talented, but because I no longer had to row against the current every day. Remember this. You can't fly with eagles if you keep staying with chickens. If what I shared today resonated with you, hit like so I know you're serious about your personal growth journey. Subscribe so you can keep exploring the success principles with me, principles that can change how you live, how you think, and how you act every day. And I want to hear from you. Out of the 5 signs we covered, which one made you think the most? Leave a comment below. If you're on the journey of growing up and you're ready to upgrade your environment, comment below so I know you're still with me. Success is not a destination, it's a journey you commit to every day. And everything great begins with a small decision. Maybe today is that day for you. I truly appreciate you staying until the end of this video. See you in the next video from Jim Rohn Treasures.